Italy being called boot-shaped is not a metaphor, not a joke, and not an exaggeration. It is a geographical reality, one of the clearest shape identities of any country on Earth, and it is considered true by scientists, geographers, historians, and educators worldwide. When people say Italy is boot-shaped, they are describing an observable physical form created by millions of years of natural forces, not a symbolic label created by culture or imagination. If you remove all politics, languages, and people, and look only at the landmass of Italy from above, the shape unmistakably resembles a long, high-heeled boot stretching into the Mediterranean Sea, with the toe pointing southeast and appearing to kick the island of Sicily. This resemblance is so strong that Italy is often identified on maps even by children who know nothing else about the country. The idea is not subjective. It is visual, measurable, and universally accepted. To understand why this shape exists and whether it is truly accurate, we must go deep into geography, geology, tectonic movement, climate, and historical observation. Italy is a peninsula, meaning it is land surrounded by water on three sides. It extends southward from continental Europe into the Mediterranean Sea for more than 1,000 kilometers. This long extension naturally creates a narrow, elongated form. But the boot-like appearance comes from specific features: the curved northern boundary, the narrowing, leg-like body, the distinct heel on the eastern side, and the pointed toe in the south. The heel is formed by the region of Apulia, which sticks out into the Adriatic Sea, while the toe is formed by Calabria, which curves sharply towards Sicily. Sicily itself lies just off the tip, reinforcing the visual impression of a boot kicking an object. This is not coincidence, but the result of tectonic plate interactions between the African and Eurasian plates. Millions of years ago, the African plate began pushing northward into the Eurasian plate. This collision created the Alps in the north, and later the Apennine mountain range, which runs like a spine down the length of Italy. As these mountains rose, the surrounding land folded, stretched, and curved. At the same time, the Mediterranean Sea flooded low-lying areas, carving coastlines and shaping peninsulas. Italy's boot shape is therefore the final product of compression, uplift, erosion, and submersion over vast geological time. The shape did not suddenly appear. It slowly evolved, and yet today it is so clear that it feels almost intentional, as if nature itself sculpted a recognizable form. Cartographic evidence strongly supports this. Ancient Greek and Roman mapmakers already recognized Italy as a long, narrow landmass extending into the sea. While early maps lacked precision, the general outline was consistent. As mapping technology improved through the Renaissance and into the modern era, the boot shape became undeniable. Satellite imagery today confirms it beyond any doubt. When Italy is viewed from space, its outline matches the traditional description almost exactly. The curvature, proportions, and angles all align with the comparison. In geography education across the world, Italy is commonly introduced as the boot of Europe, not as a nickname, but as a descriptive identifier. Some people ask whether this comparison is just cultural conditioning, whether we see a boot because we are told to see one. This is a fair philosophical question, but in Italy's case, the resemblance is unusually strong. Many countries are said to look like animals or objects, but often those comparisons require imagination. Italy does not. Even without prior suggestion, most observers independently notice the boot shape when first encountering a map. Psychologically, the human brain is good at pattern recognition, but it is also resistant to false positives when shapes are vague. Italy's outline passes this test because its features correspond clearly to parts of a boot: the leg, heel, ankle, toe, and sole. It is also important to understand that the boot shape is not merely an outline, but is reinforced by internal geography. The Apennine Mountains form a ridge running down the center like the seam of a boot. The plains and valleys lie on either side like the sides of footwear. The coastline curves naturally in ways that mimic leather shaping around a foot. The northern boundary, where Italy meets the Alps, forms a wide top like the opening of a boot. These internal and external consistencies make the comparison stronger than a simple silhouette. The truth of Italy's boot shape is also reflected in language and culture. But culture followed geography, not the other way around. Italians themselves often refer to their country as lo stivale, which literally means the boot. This term is used in newspapers, political speeches, and everyday conversation. Italians did not invent the shape for fun. They recognized it because they live in it, travel through it, and see it on maps constantly. The identity became part of national self-understanding because it was visually undeniable. When something is so obvious, it naturally enters language. From an educational perspective, the boot shape helps students understand Italy's regional diversity. The long north to south stretch creates different climates, economies, and cultures. Northern Italy is closer to Central Europe, colder, more industrialized, while southern Italy is warmer, more Mediterranean and historically agrarian. This diversity exists because of the shape. The peninsula channels weather patterns, influences trade routes, and determines historical invasions and migrations. The boot shape is not just an image. It has real consequences for how Italy developed over time. Critically, no serious geographer disputes the description. Academic texts, atlases, and scientific literature freely use the comparison. This is important because science does not accept poetic language unless it is functionally useful. The boot description helps with orientation, memory, and explanation. When something is false or misleading, scientists avoid it. In Italy's case, they do not. That alone confirms its truth value. There is also the question of scale. At small scales, when Italy is shown as a tiny part of Europe, the shape remains recognizable. At large scales, when you zoom in, the details become more complex, but the overall outline still holds. This consistency across scales is rare. Many shapes disappear when zoomed in or out, but Italy's persists. That is another indicator that the comparison is structurally sound, not superficial. One might argue that the boot shape is imperfect, that it does not look exactly like a real boot. This is correct, but perfection is not the standard. No natural object perfectly matches a man-made one. The question is resemblance, not identity. A cloud shaped like a horse is not a horse, but the resemblance can be clear enough to be named. Italy's resemblance is far stronger than most such comparisons. It does not rely on fantasy, but on proportion and outline. If we examine alternative interpretations, such as seeing Italy as a leg or a peninsula without shape, they fail to explain why the boot comparison emerges independently across cultures and languages. English, Italian, French, German, and many other languages use the same idea. This cross-cultural agreement suggests that the shape is not imposed by one tradition, but recognized universally. In conclusion, Italy is called boot-shaped because it is boot-shaped in a clear, observable, and scientifically verifiable way. The description is true, accurate, and supported by geography, geology, cartography, satellite imagery, education, and common human perception. It is not symbolic, not metaphorical, and not misleading. It is one of the rare cases where a country's physical outline so closely resembles a familiar object that the comparison becomes an accepted fact rather than a poetic expression. Italy's boot shape is real, and it is one of the most distinctive geographical identities on Earth. When a person looks at a map of the world, most countries appear as irregular shapes that are difficult to describe. They have no obvious resemblance to everyday objects. Italy is different. Even without labels, borders, or names, its outline immediately stands out. The landmass stretches downward from mainland Europe into the Mediterranean Sea in a long, narrow form. At the top, the country is wide and curved, like the opening of footwear. As it goes south, it narrows into a long leg. On the eastern side, a protrusion appears, shaped like a heel. At the southern end, the land curves sharply forward into a pointed form that unmistakably resembles a toe. Just beyond that toe lies Sicily, reinforcing the visual impression of a boot kicking an object. This is not poetic language, it is visual geometry. The reason this shape is so convincing is because it satisfies multiple structural conditions at once. A boot is not just a straight object. It has a leg, ankle, heel, toe, and sole. Italy's geography contains equivalents of each of these elements in correct relative proportions. Many supposed shape comparisons fail because they rely on imagination to fill gaps. Italy does not. The elements are physically present and spatially aligned. To understand why Italy looks like this, we must go millions of years into the past. The Earth's crust is divided into tectonic plates that move slowly but relentlessly. Italy exists at a collision zone between the African plate and the Eurasian plate. As Africa pushed northward, it compressed and folded the land between them. This pressure created the Alps in the north, forming the broad top of the Boot, and later raised the Apennine Mountains, which run down the center of Italy like a spine. As the land rose, surrounding areas sank or were flooded by the Mediterranean Sea, carving coastlines and isolating peninsulas. This geological process did not happen evenly. The pressure curved the land, stretched it southward, and twisted it slightly eastward. The Adriatic Sea on the east and the Tyrrhenian Sea on the west exerted different erosional forces, shaping opposite sides differently. This asymmetry is why Italy has a pronounced heel on one side and a smooth curve on the other. Calabria, the southern region, was bent forward by tectonic stress, forming the toe. Sicily exists because a fragment of land broke off during this process but remained nearby, completing the visual effect. What makes Italy's shape especially convincing is that it holds up under scientific scrutiny. Satellite images taken from space, free of cultural bias, language, or interpretation, show the same outline that ancient mapmakers drew by hand. Whether you look at Italy on a globe, a satellite photo, a school atlas, or a digital map, the shape remains consistent. This consistency across technologies and eras proves that the boot shape is not imposed by human imagination. It is revealed by observation. Human perception also plays an important role here, but not in a misleading way. The human brain is designed to recognize patterns, but it does not easily agree across cultures unless the pattern is strong. The fact that people from different countries, languages, and backgrounds all independently describe Italy as boot-shaped is powerful evidence. Italians themselves call their country Lo Stivale, meaning the boot. This is not foreign labeling, it is internal recognition. When a population adopts a physical description of its own land, it usually does so because the description is undeniable. From a cartographic perspective, Italy is one of the most easily identifiable countries in the world. In geography education, teachers often test students by showing unlabeled maps. Italy is among the first countries students recognize, not because of memorization, but because of shape. This recognizability is rare. It means the shape is not vague or abstract. It is distinct and stable. The internal geography of Italy reinforces the outline even further. The Apennine Mountains form a continuous ridge along the peninsula, much like the reinforced structure inside a boot. Rivers flow down either side, creating natural divisions. The climate changes gradually from north to south, following the leg of the boot. The heel region, Apulia, is flatter and juts outward, while the toe, Calabria, is narrow and mountainous, matching the narrowing of footwear at the front. These internal correspondences strengthen the external resemblance. Importantly, calling Italy boot-shaped does not mean the country is exactly shaped like a manufactured boot. Nature does not produce perfect replicas of human objects. The claim is about strong resemblance, not identity. In geography, resemblance becomes meaningful when it is consistent, recognizable, and explanatory. Italy meets all three criteria. The boot shape explains why Italy is long rather than wide, why it has such diverse climates, why it has so much coastline, and why its regions developed differently over time. The shape also influenced history. Because Italy is a peninsula, it was accessible by sea, making it a crossroads of civilizations. Greeks, Phoenicians, Romans, Arabs, Normans, and others interacted with different parts of the boot at different times. The north was influenced by continental Europe, while the south absorbed Mediterranean and African influences. These differences exist because of the shape and orientation of the land. The boot shape is not just something you see, it is something that acts on history. Some skeptics suggest that the boot comparison is exaggerated or culturally reinforced. But this argument fails when we consider that no alternative shape description has ever replaced it. If the boot idea were weak, people would disagree or propose better comparisons. They do not. The boot remains dominant because it is the most accurate and efficient description of Italy's form. In the strictest sense, then, the statement Italy is boot-shaped is true. It is true visually, true scientifically, true educationally, and true culturally. It is supported by geology, confirmed by satellites, recognized by Italians themselves, and accepted globally. Few geographical descriptions enjoy this level of agreement. In the end, Italy's boot shape is not a curiosity or a nickname. It is one of the clearest examples of how Earth's natural processes can produce a form so distinctive that humans everywhere recognize it instantly. The truth of Italy's boot shape lies not in imagination, but in the land itself. If you agree with my conservation, please tell me in comment. Thanks for watching.